Have you ever met someone who feeds off your frustration? Someone who deliberately pushes your buttons, provokes you, and watches with a smirk as you explode. It's like they win the moment you lose control. But here's the twist. What if you flip the script? What if your calm, your silence, and your sharp words delivered with grace were more powerful than any outburst? This isn't about staying quiet, it's about staying composed. It's about owning the moment and disarming rudeness without ever raising your voice. In today's video, I'll share powerful verbal comebacks, the kind that shut down disrespect instantly. Not by shouting, not through conflict, but with quiet, cutting clarity. Say these, and you'll never feel powerless again. Let's begin with the first power move. You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to ignore it. This comeback is subtle but powerful. It's not aggressive or emotional, just calm, clear, and confident. The message: your opinion doesn't control me. Here's the truth: rude, arrogant people don't give feedback to help, they want control. They want to dominate, to feel smarter or more powerful, as if they're the expert and you're beneath them. But when you don't react, when you don't defend yourself, and instead dismiss them with poise, it completely throws them off. Let me share a quick story. There was a time I always explained myself. If someone questioned my choices, I justified them. If they mocked my passions, I'd defend them. Huge mistake. Once I showed a project I deeply cared about to an old friend I had worked hard, sacrifice, sleep poured in the effort. His response, a smirk, and "That's a waste of time." The old me would have explained everything: the why, the passion, the vision. But that day I simply smiled and said, "You're entitled to your opinion." Then I walked away. No argument, no drama, just silence. He didn't expect that. And that's when I learned calm dismissal is pure power. Previously, I mentioned the power of this sentence. Now let's talk about the impact. I looked him in the eye, said the line, and changed the subject. That's all it took. He had no comeback, no energy to feed on. He wanted conflict, validation, attention, but I gave him none. And that, more than words, disarmed him. That's why this line works so well, because it denies rude people what they crave most: your emotional reaction. Instead of giving them frustration, you give them composure. You remind them that while they can speak, you're not obligated to care. The message you send is simple: you don't matter here, and it stings because those who criticize you often do so to feel important. They want to rattle you, but when their words bounce off you like armor, it drives them mad. Use this line in key moments when someone mocks your dreams, especially bold, unconventional ones. Just smile and say, "You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to ignore it." When a toxic family member criticizes your choices, they might act like they know what's best. Use this line as your shield. When a coworker tries to belittle you in a meeting, they may speak louder to feel smarter. Stay calm, say the line, move on. Because most critics aren't doing better, they're just louder. The more noise, the more insecurity. They talk to control, not contribute. This phrase reminds them their opinion is just that, an opinion, not a truth, not your truth. There's a quote I love: "A lion doesn't lose sleep over the opinions of sheep." That's the energy you need. So next time someone tells you how to live your life, don't argue, don't defend. Just smile and say, "You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to ignore it." Then carry on, because your life, it's yours, and their opinion, irrelevant. Now, let's move to the second comeback. If I had $1 for every smart thing you said, I'd be broke. Ouch! This one lands hard, and that's the point. It sounds playful at first, almost like a joke, but underneath it delivers a sharp truth. You never say anything meaningful. It's witty cutting and nearly impossible to argue with. If they get upset, they look defensive. If they reply, they prove your point. Either way, you win. Let me share how I use this one. Back in school, there was a guy, let's call him Ryan. His entire personality was built on mocking others. He wasn't especially clever or funny, just loud. He used sarcasm to mask his insecurities and elevate himself by putting others down. One day during a group conversation, Ryan interrupted me as I was sharing a simple idea. Not groundbreaking, just worth mentioning. He jumped in with his usual smug tone. "Oh, sure, because you're such a genius, right?" Everyone laughed, not because it was funny, but because he said it loud and confidently. That's when I calmly responded, "Ryan, if I had $1 for every smart thing you said, I'd be broke." And someone choked on their drink. Another whispered, "Damn." And Ryan, he had nothing. Awkwardly shifting in his seat, trying to recover, but he couldn't. The line hit its mark. That's the power of this comeback. It's not rude or loud. It doesn't insult, it exposes. It highlights the lack of real value behind all the noise. You're not calling them dumb, you're showing with sharp wit that they've said nothing of substance. And suddenly the dynamic shifts. Rude people thrive by making others feel small. But when you calmly flip it back on them, they're left speechless. If they argue, they look petty. If they stay silent, they've lost. When should you use this line? When someone keeps interrupting you with sarcastic jabs. When a coworker constantly criticizes but never contributes. When a friend mocks you without offering anything helpful. This line doesn't just shut them down, it holds up a mirror. Here's the truth: people who mock others most often have the least to offer. Sarcasm is their shield used to hide their insecurity. And the best response? Pull that shield down. Let everyone see what's really behind it, nothing. So next time someone pretends to be the smartest one in the room without ever saying anything, smart drop the line, "If I had $1 for every smart thing you said, I'd be broke." Then just sit back and watch the silence. Let's move on to the third power move. I don't argue with people who thrive on disrespect. This isn't just a clever comeback. It's a boundary, a declaration. It means I see what you're doing and I'm not playing along. Because let's be honest, not everyone wants a real conversation. Some don't seek understanding. They want chaos. They want to provoke you and pull you into conflict just to feel in control. You've met them. They don't listen. They wait to talk. They twist your words, take offense at everything, and act like rudeness is just part of their personality. They say, "I'm just brutally honest," when really they're just brutal. So why give them your energy? Why debate someone who clearly has no respect for you? Let me share a moment from my own life. Years ago, I had a coworker. Let's call him Jake. Jake didn't just cross boundaries, he erased them. He'd cut people off mid-sentence, tear down suggestions with zero solutions, and drop sarcasm like confetti. His specialty, passive-aggressive digs. One day during a meeting, I offered a simple workflow improvement. Before I could finish, Jake rolled his eyes and said, "Yeah, because you're such an expert, right?" The old me would have tried to explain or argue back, but I had grown. I calmly looked him in the eye and said, "I don't argue with people who thrive on disrespect. No yelling, no back and forth, just calm." The room went quiet, all eyes turned to Jake, but he had nothing. If he fired back, he'd prove me right. If he backed down, he'd look weak. So he sat in silence, shifting uncomfortably. And the best part, he never tried that with me again. That's the power of this line. It calls out bad behavior without feeding it. You're not insulting them, you're describing them. And that hits harder because it strips their power. These people thrive on reactions, on chaos. But when you stay calm, they fall apart. You've held up a mirror and they can't look away. Use this line when someone's clearly trying to start a fight. Don't take the bait. A coworker or boss talks down to you. Show you won't accept disrespect. A friend or family member keeps belittling you. Being close doesn't excuse cruelty. A stranger tries to provoke you. Not every battle is worth it. Here's the truth. Some people don't argue to solve anything. They argue to win, to feel dominant. Seeing others flustered, that's their goal. So the best move is no reaction. Just say, I don't argue with people who thrive on disrespect, and walk away. Because once they realize they have no power over you, they've already lost. Let's move to the fourth power move. Your attitude isn't going to get you very far in life. This isn't just a comeback, it's a wake-up call. Some people go through life being rude, disrespectful, arrogant, thinking it's a sign of strength. They act like being dismissive or cutting makes them powerful. But here's the reality, that attitude is a one-way ticket to nowhere. Why does this line hit so hard? Because it exposes the truth. Rude people often confuse arrogance with confidence. They think tearing others down makes them seem strong, but life doesn't reward that. No one respects someone who treats others like trash. No boss promotes someone who can't collaborate. No partner wants to build with someone who constantly belittles, and no successful person ever got ahead by talking over others and ignoring the room. So when you say your attitude isn't going to get you very far in life, you're not just shutting them down, you're showing them the road they're on, a road that ends in isolation, regret, and missed opportunities. Let me give you a real example. I once worked with a guy, we'll call him Mark. Mark thought being rude was a personality trait. If someone made a mistake, he'd roll his eyes. If someone had an idea, he'd cut them off before they finished. His strategy: make others feel small so he could feel big. One day during a team meeting, a colleague made a minor suggestion, and Mark snapped. Maybe if you actually knew what you were talking about, we wouldn't be wasting time. The room went still. People were visibly uncomfortable, but no one said anything because rude people count on silence. But I wasn't going to stay silent. I looked right at him and said, "Your attitude isn't going to get you very far in life," he smirked. Tried to brush it off. But I noticed something. As the meeting continued, Mark wasn't laughing anymore. His bravado faded. He was suddenly quiet, because deep down he knew I was right. And here's the kicker. A few months later, promotions were announced. Guess who got passed over? Mark. Because skill means nothing if people hate working with you. That's why this line works. It forces the other person to think long term. They might think they're winning in the moment, but where is that behavior leading them? Nowhere. This comeback doesn't just hurt feelings, it exposes self-sabotage. It's not an insult, it's a fact. And facts hurt more than any insult ever could. Use this line when a coworker is condescending or rude. Remind them their behavior will cost them. In the long run, someone constantly puts others down. Shine a light on their future failure. A person believes rudeness equals strength. Show them that their so-called power is actually their biggest weakness. Remember what I told Jake? I leaned back, looked him in the eyes, and calmly said, I don't argue with people who thrive on disrespect. Then silence. No yelling, no back and forth, just stillness. The whole room went quiet. Everyone turned toward Jake, waiting to see how he'd react. But he had nothing. Absolutely nothing. If he kept going, he'd only prove me right. If he backpedaled, he'd look weak. So he just sat there, shifting in his seat, trying to think of a comeback that never came. And the best part, after that moment, he never tried that nonsense with me again. That's why this line is so powerful. It calls out their behavior without feeding it. You're not insulting them, you're describing them. And that cuts deeper because it removes their control. These people live for reactions, they feed off emotional chaos. But when you give them nothing, they crumble. You've held up a mirror to their face and they're forced to look. Here's when to use this line: when someone is clearly trying to start a fight, don't play their game. Starve their negativity. When a coworker or boss talks down to you, remind them you won't tolerate disrespect. When a friend or family member keeps belittling you, closeness doesn't give anyone a free pass to be cruel. When a stranger tries to provoke you, not every battle is worth fighting. Some people aren't even worth acknowledging. Here's the harsh truth. Some people don't argue to solve problems, they argue to win. They argue because it gives them a twisted sense of power. Watching others get flustered, that's their victory. So the best response is no response. Just calmly say, I don't argue with people who thrive on disrespect, then walk away. Because the moment they realize they don't have control over you, they've already lost. Let's move to the fifth power move. This conversation was over before it even started. This line, this is verbal checkmate. It's not just a witty comeback, it's an absolute shutdown. It ends arguments before they begin. It tells the disrespectful person, you thought you were about to start something, but I'm not even stepping into the ring. Disrespectful people thrive on conflict. They poke, they prod, they try to stir up emotion because that's where they feel strongest. They want to provoke you because if they can get you to react, they win. But when you remain unfazed, when you make it clear that their words are meaningless, they lose instantly. By calmly saying, this conversation was over before it even started, you do something powerful. You take away their control. You show them they don't get to dictate your energy. You make them feel invisible, and trust me, there's nothing more frustrating to a rude person than being ignored. Why does this line land so hard? Picture a bully pushing someone, expecting them to fight back. But instead, that person just shrugs and walks away with complete indifference. That bully, powerless. That's exactly what happens when you use this line. You deny them the satisfaction of getting a rise out of you. You strip them of their ability to engage, manipulate, or control the narrative. You send one clear message: you don't matter enough for me to even respond. And that's brutal because it elevates you, it keeps your energy intact, it preserves your peace. Let me share a quick personal story. I once worked with a guy, let's call him Jake, yes, another Jake. This one had a habit of being negative about everything. He criticized your work, your ideas, your tone, even the way you phrase your thoughts. Worst of all, he made sure to do it in front of others, hoping for an audience. One day in a team meeting, I suggested a new approach to a project before I could even finish my thought. Jake smirked and said, yeah, or we could just do it the right way instead. Everyone in the room tensed up. He wanted a reaction. He wanted me to defend myself, to argue, to get flustered. But I stayed calm. I looked at him and said, this conversation was over before it even started. Then I turned back to my screen and continued working like he didn't even exist. Silence. Jake was stunned. He tried to laugh it off, but you could see it. I had rattled him. I didn't give him the fight he wanted. And from that moment on, he never came at me again. Here's when to use this line. When someone is baiting you into a fight, you don't owe them your energy. When a coworker, boss, or acquaintance is being passive-aggressive, shut it down early. When a friend or family member crosses the line, remind them you're not a punching bag. When a stranger insults you out of nowhere, don't feed their need for attention. Final thought. Not every insult deserves your attention. Not every battle deserves your presence. Some people just want to stir chaos. But when you stay grounded, when you choose your peace over petty arguments, you win every single time. Let the rude ones rage. You walk away with your dignity intact. Rude people may think they're stealing your energy, but they lose the moment you show them how little they actually matter. So next time someone tries to drag you into a pointless argument, just say, "This conversation was over before it even started," then walk away. Leave them sitting there stunned, realizing they just lost before they ever began. Let's move to the sixth power move. Thanks for your input. I'll be sure to forget it immediately. This one, it's pure art, because people who thrive on disrespect also thrive on control. Their goal is to rattle you, to shake your confidence, and drag you down to their level. But this line, it strips away their power in one clean swipe. Let's be real, when someone disrespects you, are they actually offering anything of value? Are they giving meaningful feedback, having a thoughtful discussion? No, most of the time they're just running their mouth to hear the sound of their own voice. They want you to take the bait, but instead of taking them seriously, you hit them with this line casually, confidently, and treat them like background noise. That's what makes it powerful. You acknowledge their effort just enough to dismiss it completely. Why this phrase works like magic. It turns their words to dust. Disrespectful people want their comments to linger. They want their insults to live rent-free in your mind. But when you say thanks for your input, I'll be sure to forget it immediately, you're telling them you just wasted your breath. Your words mean nothing to me, and that realization, that's a punch to the ego. They expected a fight. They expected you to explain yourself, but instead you give them indifference, which is far more powerful than anger. That silence afterward, that's them realizing they've just been played. Even better, this comeback protects your peace, because engaging in drama, arguing back, letting negativity invade your headspace, it's exhausting. This line cuts it off before it begins. How it works in real life at work, a coworker tries to shut down your idea in a meeting. That's an interesting take, but let's leave the serious suggestions to the experts. Instead of getting flustered, you calmly say, "Thanks for your input. I'll be sure to forget it immediately," and keep going like their words never happened. They'll look petty and you'll look poised. With toxic friends or family, a relative mocks your career or dreams, still chasing that little project of yours. Smile and respond. "I appreciate the comment. It's already erased from my mind." Then shift the conversation, the sting they feel. That's what happens when you show them their negativity has zero effect. With strangers or trolls, someone throws a random insult your way, online or in public. You respond with, "Oh, wow, you must have really thought that one would land. Thanks for the input. I'll forget it in about 3 seconds." The more relaxed you sound, the more devastating it is. The psychology behind this response: rude people work on a simple formula. They insult you, react, they feel powerful. But when you respond with effortless dismissal, you break that formula. You deny them their payoff. You show them their words have no place in your world, and that's power. Some people just can't help themselves. They live for drama, conflict, and pointless arguments. It's like they wake up each morning, look in the mirror and think, how can I embarrass myself today? You acknowledge their effort just enough to dismiss it completely. Why this phrase works like magic, they thought they were making you look bad, but instead, you've just exposed the truth. They're embarrassing themselves, and the worst part, they don't even realize it. Why this response hits so hard, it forces self-reflection, even if they'll never admit it. When someone's being rude, they expect you to get upset, to defend yourself, to play into their little game. But when you hit them with this line, you stop them cold. You plant a seed of doubt. Icky. Am I actually making a fool of myself? Even if their ego won't let them say it out loud, the thought is now there gnawing away. You've also shifted the spotlight. You're no longer on the defensive. They're the center of attention, and not in a good way. People around them start noticing how ridiculous they're acting. And now the rude person has two options: backpedal awkwardly or double down on their nonsense, which only proves your point. Either way, you win. The best part, you're doing all of this without raising your voice or breaking a sweat. You're calm, collected, and in total control, and they're the ones scrambling. How to use this in real life at work. Imagine a coworker keeps interrupting you during a meeting with eye rolls or sarcastic comments. Instead of getting angry, you pause, look at them and say with a smirk, "You seem really dedicated to making a fool of yourself." Then you go right back to what you were doing. They either sit in stunned silence or try to defend themselves, which only makes them look worse. With a toxic friend or family member, maybe someone makes a passive-aggressive dig like, wow, you actually did something right for once. Instead of reacting, you just smile and say, you seem really dedicated to making a fool of yourself. Then continue enjoying your day. Let them sit with that. With strangers or trolls, someone's being obnoxious in public or online, trying to bait you into drama. Just drop, "You seem really dedicated to making a fool of yourself. Keep up the hard work," and walk away or log off. Let them sit alone with the weight of their own stupidity. The psychology behind this response: most rude people don't actually think they're being foolish. They think they're being clever, dominant, that they're winning the moment. But when you calmly call out what's really happening, that they're embarrassing themselves, you cut through their delusion. You force them to face an uncomfortable truth, and everyone watching starts to see it too. That's what makes this comeback so powerful. It doesn't just shut them down. It makes them second guess themselves the next time they try to act like that again. And that's real power. Final thought. Dealing with rude people isn't about out insulting them. It's about outclassing them. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to argue. You don't even need to take them seriously. Because here's the truth: disrespect only works when you let it get to you. But when you stay calm, throw back a sharp response, and walk away like their words meant absolutely nothing, that's when they feel it. That's when they realize they wasted all that energy trying to bring you down, only to end up embarrassing themselves in the process. So the next time someone disrespects you, remember you have the power to make them regret it, not by stooping to their level, but by showing them with complete calm that their words have zero power over you. And once they realize that you've already won, and if you haven't already, subscribed to the channel so you never miss a new insight that could change the way you think, act, and live. Thanks for being here, part of the Stoic Kernel. I'll see you in the next one.